He sat down slowly across from me, resume in hand, eyes scanning the office like he belonged there. I recognized him the moment he walked in. Same smug expression, just older, a little grayer, still carrying himself like he had all the answers. But I didn't say a word. Instead, I took a sip of coffee, flipped to the first page of his application, and there it was. His name. I glanced up. He smiled, polite, oblivious. "Thank you for seeing me today," he said. "I've admired this company's growth for a while now. Impressive work, truly." I smiled back, just enough to hide the irony. Because 7 years ago, that same man stood over me, in front of a lecture hall, and said, "You're a failure, and you always will be." And now, he was asking me for a job. It was supposed to be just another presentation. I had spent nights preparing, slides cleaned up, sources cited, notes organized down to the last bullet point. I wasn't the best student in the class, but I tried harder than anyone else. And for once, I thought, maybe I'd actually earn some respect. Until he opened his mouth. The moment I finished my last slide, silence. Not applause, not even polite nods. Just silence. Then Professor Whitaker leaned forward, looked directly at me, and said, "This is what you bring to my classroom. This is mediocre at best, bordering on embarrassing." A few students chuckled. My face went hot. I tried to respond, to explain, but he cut me off, loud enough for the entire lecture hall to hear. "You're a failure, and you always will be." It felt like the floor dropped out beneath me. From that moment on, I wasn't just invisible. I was a joke. Classmates avoided group work. Some whispered when I walked past. One even scribbled "future failure" on my desk in pencil. It took everything in me to keep showing up, to keep my head down, to keep trying. But that sentence lived in my head like a parasite. Every bad grade, confirmation. Every stumble in class, proof. Every awkward silence after raising my hand, reinforcement. And Whitaker never let up. If I stumbled, he was there. If I succeeded, he moved the goalpost. I learned to stop reacting, sat in the back, took notes, swallowed the humiliation whole. My confidence didn't just crack, it vanished. But something else quietly formed beneath the surface. Grit. I stopped trying to impress him, focused on surviving the program. One course at a time. I picked up freelance gigs to build a portfolio. Started teaching myself skills outside the syllabus. Design, coding, market strategy. There were days I cried in the library bathroom. Days I came close to quitting. But every time I wanted to give up, I remembered his words. "You always will be." And something in me snapped. What if the only way to make that sentence false was to keep going until the world proved him wrong? So I graduated. Not top of the class. No honors. No handshake from Whitaker. But I walked across that stage knowing something he didn't. I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Graduation didn't come with applause. No job offers. Not even proper send-off. I packed 2 suitcases, left my apartment, and moved back in my childhood bedroom. Same faded posters. Same leaky ceiling. Same sinking feeling that maybe Whitaker had been right. But I refused to sit in that feeling. I got a job waiting tables at a diner just to survive. On my breaks, I scribbled ideas into a notebook. At night, I stayed up watching tutorials. How to pitch, how to code, how to prototype. I had no capital, no network, no connections. What I had was an obsession, a single idea that wouldn't let go of me. A digital platform to help underserved college students build real-world skills outside the classroom. No grades, no gatekeeping, just tools, mentorship, and space to grow. I built a landing page, tested it with a few users, ran surveys on Reddit. Piece by piece, it started coming together. Friends called it a side hustle. My parents called it a hobby. But to me, it was survival. Every time I hit a wall, I remembered how easily Whitaker dismissed me, and how many students like me were dismissed too. This platform had to exist, even if no one else saw the need yet. 2 years in, I applied for a microgrant. Rejected. Pitched a local incubator. Rejected. Uploaded a demo to Product Hunt. Crickets. But I kept showing up. Investor calls during lunch breaks. Back-end fixes from my phone on the train. Mentor emails at 2 a.m., hoping someone would reply. Then a shift. A user left a review. This helped me land an internship. Then another. Then a college counselor asked to partner. A tiny wave became a ripple. Then came the breakthrough. A viral tweet from a former user praising the app's impact. Overnight, 5,000 new signups. Investors started calling me. The first check came from a firm that had never funded a Black woman before. The second came from an angel investor who said, "Your resilience sold me more than your pitch." And just like that, the company became real. We got office space, hired a team, scaled the platform. Media outlets called us the future of alternative education. And every time someone asked where the idea came from, I smiled and said, "Bad professors make good founders." Because even if he didn't know it yet, Whitaker helped build this too. He just never imagined he'd be applying to work here. It started like any other morning. I was scrolling through digital resumes, sipping lukewarm coffee. Click, click, skim, delete. Then one name slid into my inbox and stopped me cold. For a second, I thought I imagined it. But no, it was real. Dr. Thomas Whitaker. Same name, same credentials, same smug profile photo. Just older now, a little less hair, a little less pride. I stared at the screen, unsure whether to laugh or feel sick. He'd applied to my company, a mid-level role in research and curriculum design, a position that reported directly to my chief learning officer. And in his cover letter, he wrote, "I'm passionate about helping the next generation of learners thrive in non-traditional environments." I nearly spit out my coffee. Now, he cared about non-traditional, the same man who mocked me, and every student who didn't fit his rigid standards. I scrolled through his work history. 7 years teaching. Then a gap. 2 years. No explanation. A vague line. Transition from academia to private sector. So I did some digging. Turns out, he was let go from the university. Not public scandal, but enough whispers on faculty forums. Verbal humiliation. Biased grading. Dismissive conduct. One post read, "I hope he never gets near another classroom." And now, he was here, resume in hand, trying to start over. I leaned back in my chair and breathed deep. I had options. I could delete the application, reject him outright, ignore it. But then a different idea crept in. Not petty, not cruel, just poetic. I picked up the phone, called HR. "Move this one to final interview," I said. They hesitated. "But he doesn't meet the qualifications." "Doesn't matter," I said. "I'll handle it personally." That night, I opened a flash drive I hadn't touched in years. On it, the recording from that day. The day he humiliated me in front of 60 students. I didn't keep it out of revenge. I kept it as proof. Back then, I needed it to believe I wasn't crazy. Now, it wasn't just proof. It was closure. I printed his resume, set the interview for Monday, and for the first time in years, when I saw his name, I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel shame. I felt power. Monday morning, the receptionist pinged me through the speaker. "Your next interview is here. Dr. Thomas Whitaker." I looked at the door. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't that student anymore. And he was about to find out exactly how much had changed. He walked in, right on time, polished, but nervous, resume folder in hand, still trying to play the authority figure, still leading with his title. "Dr. Whitaker," I said, standing to shake his hand. He froze, just for a second, then gave a tight smile. "Pleasure to meet you," he said. "I'm really excited about this opportunity. You're doing remarkable things." I gestured to the seat across from me. He sat. No recognition. None. Why would he recognize me? I was just another student back then. Just another disposable name in a lecture hall full of them. But I remembered. Every word. Every smirk. Every silence. I opened his resume. Took a sip of coffee. Then asked, cool and casual, "Walk me through your transition from teaching to the private sector. There's a 2-year gap here." He cleared his throat. "Ah, yes. Well, I left the university to pursue new challenges. Higher education was shifting, and I felt it was time for something different." I raised an eyebrow. Was the departure voluntary? He blinked. "Ah, yes. Of course. Just mutual timing." I let the silence stretch. Let it settle. Then, "You mentioned you're passionate about helping students thrive in alternative learning environments. How does that line up with some of your past classroom evaluations? His jaw twitched. I always held students to high standards, he said. Sometimes they misinterpret rigor as hostility. I nodded, pretending to write something down. Would you say calling a student a failure falls under that rigorous approach? That stopped him. Cold. He froze, eyes locked on mine. And for the first time, he actually looked at me. Closely. His brow furrowed. Recognition flickered. I'm sorry, have we met before? I smiled slowly. You don't remember me, but I remember everything. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The room got quiet. He'd come here for a fresh start, but walked straight into a reckoning. And the best part? I didn't even have to raise my voice. He sat there, silent. No smug smile. No clever retort. For the first time since he walked in, he didn't have a rehearsed answer. Just a resume folder clenched in shaking hands. I'm sorry, he finally muttered, voice low. If I said anything that... I stopped him with a raised hand. You didn't say anything, Professor. You said everything in front of 60 people, and you meant every word. He looked down, fingers curled tighter around the folder, like it could protect him. I've changed since then, he offered. Truly, I've reflected a lot these past few years. I nodded. Not cold, not angry, just calm. That's good. Growth is necessary, especially when you've caused harm. He blinked, unprepared for the conversation. He'd practiced for a job interview. Not this. You once said I was a failure, I said. You humiliated me in front of my peers. You did it like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. I paused. Let that sink in. But I didn't fail. I built something. I employed people. I changed lives. And now you're here. I could have crushed him. I had the recording. I had the upper hand. I could have given him the job just to watch him squirm every week. I had the power. All of it. But instead, I leaned back. Voice steady. Even. You're qualified on paper. But we're looking for people who create safe, empowering environments. I'm not sure you understand what that really means yet. He nodded slowly, eyes glassy, shame settling in. I reached for his resume, folded it, slid it back across the table. I wish you the best in your search. But this isn't your place. He stood, hands trembling. Understood, he whispered. And thank you for your time. He walked out, didn't look back. And in that silence, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt calm, because I didn't need revenge. What I needed was truth. And the truth? I was never a failure. Not then. Not now. He left the building. But I stayed. In the seat he never thought I'd earn. With a team I built. In a company I created. Living the future he told me I'd never have. After he left, I sat still. Not frozen. Not shaken. Just still. The silence didn't feel empty. It felt complete. For years, I carried that day in the lecture hall like a scar. The humiliation. The laughter. The collapse of everything I thought I was. It shaped how I moved. How I hesitated. How I doubted. But now, that chapter was over. And I realized something. This was never just about him. It was never just about one professor. It was about the world that had always second-guessed me. A woman of color. No Ivy League degree. No old boys club behind me. No family money to fall back on. So I built something no one expected. Not to prove him wrong. Not to get revenge. But to create a space where no one had to feel what I felt. Ever again. The platform didn't just grow. It thrived. We partnered with nonprofits. Launched mentorship programs. Reached students who'd been labeled average. Unfocused. Not academic material. We gave them tools. And more importantly, we gave them belief. Sometimes I read the messages. First time I ever felt smart. Wish this existed when I was in school. Thank you for making me feel seen. And those words, they meant more than any investor check. More than any headline. Because somewhere out there, there's another girl, sitting in the back of a classroom, wondering if she's enough. Wondering if she belongs. And maybe, just maybe, she finds us. And maybe that's all she needs. To try again. Professor Whitaker will probably never remember my name. But I'll never forget what he gave me. Not pain. Not shame. Fuel. And from that fuel, I built something unstoppable. Because the best revenge isn't humiliation. It's evolution. While he was busy protecting his title, I created my own.